All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us. As I say this morning, wherever you're watching from, thanks for being with us. If you've been taking a look at the recent promo that I had of our show today, you'll know that I do have a terrific guest on tap for you. So give me one moment while I introduce them on. So the guests that I have, they do not need any introduction. They are a mainstay in the horror thriller genres. It is my pleasure to welcome back Bill Oberst Jr., star of the film that you see right here, Painkiller. So let me bring him on. Hey, Bill, how's it going, man?
Hey, Brandon, it's good. I'm glad to be back with you. I'm trying to
Absolutely.
make my head be about the same size as yours.
There
That's
we
about
go.
right.
There we go. All
About right.
right. So first and foremost, thanks, as always for, coming back on the show. And first and foremost, I know it's been a while since we last spoke. How have things been with you?
Oh, they've been really good. I mean, as far as work goes, um, everything's pretty much back up to normal. We're still doing mask and social distancing on set. I expect that'll probably continue. Oh, I don't know, Brandon. I probably end of the year because SAG is really, really careful. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff shooting. I did a Bitcoin commercial in December, and it was a bitch of a shoot because of all the social distancing and stuff, but it just started airing nationally. It looks great. So everybody's optimistic. Yeah, I'm feeling good. How about you?
Good, man. In a similar vein, a lot of things are starting to, pick up. So it's been an interesting time as things, continue to, progress and move forward as we, truck along or trudge along to get back to, a state of normalcy for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah, man. I got my Pfizer and I'm happy about it.
Absolutely. So hopping right into Painkiller, can you tell me about this film and what it entails, because it sheds a light on a interesting topic, which is that of that pharmaceutical realm, and how shady and greedy it can be, in terms of the repercussions that it has as an industry.
Yeah, so the film, which we shot before the pandemic, is about a father who's lost his daughter to opioids, and he's mad. And he's also a radio host, so he turns his whole radio show into railing against the opioid industry, and nobody's doing anything about it. But he's got a mask and a gun, and he decides he's going to do something about it.
Of course. And in speaking to that, and getting into the subject matter, can you talk a bit about that process of being well versed with this subject? Because there's so many different I feel topics that can be addressed when it comes to this issue, and the various different opioids or pharmaceutical drugs that have had an impact, for better or for worse, on our society. So can you talk a bit about that process of learning more about this crisis?
Have you ever taken them or had any experience with them yourself?
I have not.
Okay. Before I shot this movie, I had a hernia operation, and so the doc gave them to me. It was oxy, and he said, "Don't use these unless you're really in pain." And I followed his advice, but like the third night, it was pretty rough, and I thought, "Well, I'm just going to try it." Shit, I haven't slept that well since I was 17 years old. I woke up feeling like I could take on the world, and I looked at that little green bottle, and I thought, "I want you." And it was one pill. One pill. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to be strong and I'm going to leave the bottle here, but tonight I'm not going to take one. I had to throw the sons of bitches away. And that's just from one, right? So
Yeah.
it's incredibly addictive, and people are not to blame for being addicted because it activates the parts of our brain that say, yeah, feel good, want more. And so the fact that people produce these things knowing they were addictive, and that some, not all, but some doctors prescribed them knowing how addictive they were, is wicked. There's no other word for it but wicked. I mean, maybe we're getting a handle on it now, but that still leaves millions of people who are hooked on this stuff. And I sound a little bit, although not as angry and I don't have a gun, but a little bit like my character in this movie, Painkiller.
Yeah.
How could this happen and nobody pays the price for it? You've got funerals that have happened, you've got lives that have been ruined and can never be set right again. And people made gajillions of dollars off of it and nobody paid. And it's just another example of how, to me, capitalism doesn't look out for you. It's in a capitalist society, if you don't look out for yourself, nobody else will. Because if I go to the doctor in 19, whatever it was, and I say, hey, I had a soccer injury, my shoulder hurts, and he gives me this stuff and I start taking it, am I to blame? Because I took what the doctor gave me. So it's this kind of feeling that motivates my character to go out and start offing people in Painkiller. So it's about vigilante justice. It's a revenge picture, but it also raises the question, what do you do when something like this happens in society and nobody pays?
For sure, for sure, and that's actually a great segue into my next question, and that's just the idea of being this vigilante, and we've had this conversation before when you've been on the show and talking about playing a lot of troubled characters, and even though you understand and you sympathize with where the character is coming from, you could still argue that there are elements, there's a darkness to this character. And I guess the thing that came to mind was a hardened will and resolve. Because the only thing that brought me to that conclusion is a scene that your character that you have, with your fellow co-star with Michael, and where he's, as a normal doctor would, taking your vitals and that type of thing. And he talks about like, wow, you're like really calm and very, very, you're pretty, settled and calm. And despite, everything that we know that this character does throughout this film and many of the violent acts that happen, with this character due to that need for revenge, it says a lot to, in terms of what got him there or what gets him to this point. Because I'm sure, as he mentions at some point with his friend, that first time was really hard, and understandably so, just that idea of that violence. So can you speak to that in trying to come to terms with that violence that the character has, and making it okay for yourself in terms of understanding where it comes from, basically getting into the mind uh of this character.
I try not to play God, Brandon, in my personal life because I believe in God, but I'm not very successful at it. I'm playing God all the time, man, all the time. I'm separating people into piles of good people and bad people. If somebody goes to jail, I want to know, well, what'd you do to get you there? I'm bad about that. And there's because I think the reason that we're inclined to do it is that it makes us feel like there's some kind of order to the world. And particularly when I'm the one who gets to decide what the order is. So that's the mindset that says, There is no order in the world, and I am going to provide order, but that always leads to chaos every time.
Exactly.
And this is a fantasy. This picture's a fantasy. In real life, this guy's life would fall apart even more after what he did. But we're bad, as we would say. And I was raised in the South. They used to say, he's bad to drink, or he's bad to smoke, or he's bad. We're bad to play God, and so is my guy in the movie. What he's doing is not right, but you do understand it, because I think that impulse is in all of us.
Definitely, definitely. And were there points of it, not just with the choices that he makes, or even, I guess, with the repercussions of many of his actions. Obviously, in playing that character, and you can't judge, because you hear from folks all the time whenever they play someone who is conflicted like that. You can't judge their actions if you are able to play them fully.
That's right.
So, with that being in mind, were there some times where, in playing this character, even though intrinsically that you cannot judge the character in order to be able to bring the character to life, that it still was difficult to you in with those choices, even though you kind of had to still make it feasible for yourself, in terms of the decision making that they have.
Yes. And I had a lot of discussions with the director about this. I always push for making the character have more culpability and more guilt about what he's doing than Mark, our director, wanted me to have, and he turned out to be right. Ultimately, the director's always right, that. But yeah, it is difficult to do scenes like, my guy walks into somebody's bedroom and says, "Are you the CEO of Adzo Chemicals?" And the guy says, "Yeah, who the hell are you?" And my character says, "I'm your conscience." Bam, 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 6 bullets into this man who's sleeping in his bed. And I don't even know if he was involved in any way with my daughter's death, but it just feels good to shoot him. That's really dangerous territory. And in some ways, to me, it's more difficult and more frightening than a horror movie where, I'm skinning somebody, because it just feels different, because it's something that could really happen. What if someone killed a member of my family? Would I feel the desire to go into somebody's bedroom and pump bullets into them, even if they were only peripherally involved? I'm afraid I might. And so, yeah, you're right. It was difficult.
And with that being said, they're not well. And by the conclusion, there's an indication that the story might continue. So, do you have any hopes of what that might look like for the character, and digging deeper into um, what what the ripples of his decisions have? Because only reason why I bring that up is, we do have an instance with a character close to you, and to not spoil anything, there is a heel change where we have another person who might potentially take that same role going forward. And you could argue, maybe because your character is so hardened that it still hasn't, like, perhaps um struck them yet, of perhaps the repercussions of being a vigilante, and how that not only endangers not just themselves, obviously, but other people in their lives, and in their circle. Um is that is that or maybe some other elements, things that you hope to explore further, should the story continue?
He's killed like 20 people between this movie and the prequel, which was Stressed to Kill, where he's killing people because his blood pressure is too high. So I'd love to see him crash and burn. I'd love to see him have the repercussions. I don't. I don't think that the our director Mark Savage would be interested in doing it, because that's not the vibe of these pictures.
Sure.
Personally, yeah, I'd probably do a downer movie where he, all the repercussions come to him and he has to deal with it. I don't know. Maybe Mark would. I love Mark Savage, and anything he does, I want to be a part of. But he had a definite idea for this character, which was that the character did not. He felt the character feels that what he's doing, he's justified in. And I don't know if Mark would ever want my character to come out of that and to feel like, oh my God, what I did was wrong. Um, and that begs a question, actually, like if in real life you do this kind of shit, if you do it for real, do you have to then hold on to for the rest of your life when you know you've done something unspeakably horrible and wicked? Do you have to hold on to the rest of your life the feeling that I was right? I can never be wrong. I was right to do it. Because if you let go of it, you're afraid to fall apart.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what it's always interesting, especially in for all intents and purposes. If I were to generalize it, kind of similar trope that you were seeing now with superheroes, where you have that vigilante element, and probably in the wheelhouse that I'm thinking of with this character is like the Punisher, perhaps. In terms of how set and uh, focused they are in what it is that they do and what they believe in what they're doing. So, but with that being said, it's also interesting when things are turned on their head, and if there is ever opportunities to see more of the characters, to look inward and to see to really refocus perhaps like what the character's mission is, or what um, their mantra is going forward, because perhaps as a vigilante they're still trying to find their way of, okay, this is how I started, I'm still doing baby steps here, and maybe I don't want to go down this road, and maybe I want to go down this road instead. So
Yeah, and how do you? How do you
yeah.
go down when you've been down a road like this? It's
And
this
how do you
dark.
come back? Yeah.
How do
Is
you
he going
come
to come
back?
back from it?
Can you just flip, or what's the process you have to go through to get back? That is very interesting. There's a danger to me personally. There's a great danger in moral certainty. I never trust people who say I'm absolutely morally certain about this thing that I've done. I always worry about that. I worry about it in myself, because if I'm so sure that I know, damn it, I'm right, if I have to be that emphatic, there's something going on that I'm not recognizing. But maybe that's because I always look for shades of gray.
For sure. For sure. Well, with that being said, Bill, as I said, we have Painkiller, on the way, but I know you were commenting on some of the other projects that are happening right now. Are you able to share, talk more, about what those are further, or are some, still in development?
Yeah, May 4th, Painkiller releases on demand digital. So just look for it, check it out. And the next project that I'm doing is called Dead Iris. It's a film we're going to shoot in Mexico. I
Cool.
did a movie called DIS.
Okay.
It's not mainstream. It's very extreme horror. It's offensive. In fact, I was going to say in some ways, but it's pretty offensive in all ways. It's the director's personal vision of hell. And so Adrian Corona directed this. It's very intense. He's very into like Mexican mythology. And
Okay.
so for the follow-up, what Adrian contacted me, and he said, I got an idea for something built around sweat lodge culture, which goes back to the Aztecs. That the idea that in the sweat lodge, there could be a portal opened up between the world of the living and the world of the dead, and you can make contact. And so this movie is about a guy who comes down to Mexico, and he wants through the sweat lodge to contact his girl who's dead. And he finds her, but it's not good. Of course, it's not good. And I'm going to play Shaman, like this very weird American expatriate who's gone down there and said to hell with everything, let his hair grow, and he's a sweat lodge shaman. And so he's getting this guy and the other people who are with him into this mystical practices and opening this portal to the other world. And it turns out badly for everybody.
Gotcha. Well, with that being said, Bill, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. To talk about acting and the various shades of gray with characters. Before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. Everywhere online is Bill Oberst Jr. And Twitter is a really good way. I love interacting with Twitter because it's quick and it's just a few characters. So if people hit me on Bill Oberst Jr. on Twitter, that I spend a lot of time there. I do Instagram because I have to, and TikTok because I have to. Twitter and Facebook, I don't like Facebook anymore, man. It's too much. But Twitter I like. It's quick. So say hello.
There you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Bill Oberst Jr. For joining us talking about Painkiller. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for watching this edition. You can find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited, and of course, you can find me, Brandon Choi ENT, which you find right there, and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye.